Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, with my Week 9 2015 NFL predictions. Well, this week, I'm back in the same spot that I've been in the last 2 weeks. It's incredibly frustrating. I am 7-6 once again, which takes my overall record now to 73-45. I don't know what it is about the number 8, but apparently that's my lucky number over the last 3 weeks, because that's the highest I've gotten in a 14-game week the last 3 weeks. It's incredibly frustrating, even though there are some picks that definitely that I looked at that I definitely went bold against. One thing I will say is I cannot pick the Houston Texans right at all. I think I've lost their last 2 games pretty convincingly, and I've looked pretty stupid doing that. So I definitely now, depending on who they're playing, I might not take, or maybe besides Jacksonville, I'm either going to give Houston their credit and say they can beat those 2 teams, but everybody else, I don't think they'll beat. And then of course you have the other game that I kind of went bold against, the Detroit-Kansas City game. That was an ugly game by the Detroit Lions. They only scored 3 points up until about 6 minutes left in the game, where they scored a garbage time touchdown and nobody cared. But they weren't even in the game from the first possession. The Chiefs, after they kicked the field goal, the Chiefs went down and scored a touchdown, and that was it. They just blew the brakes right off after that. And here was the worst thing. It was the fact that Alex Smith's legs were the most effective thing the whole game. He actually was the leading rusher in that game. That's really bad on both sides, where your quarterback is the leading rusher of the team. And it's Alex Smith. He's not Russell Wilson. He's not, Kaepernick. He's not a guy that has, that kind of ability. He can scramble a bit, but he's not expected to run that often. And the Lions are just giving him too many opportunities to do it. Matthew Stafford threw for another 2 interceptions, and I think he actually finished the game about 70 yards, which was absolutely pathetic. He now leads the league in interceptions with 11, and I really think that even though, in my opinion, of kind of how I would look at things, I could possibly consider bringing Jim Caldwell back, but if they can't get their act together and if they can't show any kind of promise, I actually would also, I would buck my own thought and actually really do consider firing Jim Caldwell, because this is an absolutely pathetic Lions team that should be doing a lot better with all the talent they have. It's actually quite incredibly disappointing that they only have 1 win. But those are my thoughts on the other 2 losses. The other ones, nobody expected Atlanta to lose to Tampa Bay. Most people didn't expect the Chargers to lose to the Ravens, even though shout-outs to my friends, Drew and John, and also I'm a bit happy myself for getting the Ravens game right. They're diehard fans, and we were able to get a break, guys. So shout-out to you 2 guys there. And then most people didn't expect the Packers to lose to the Broncos the way they did. I'll get into that game as I go through my picks. And nobody expected the Jets to lose to the Raiders. But when Ryan Fitzpatrick goes down and you have Geno Smith playing the game, most of the time when you have Geno Smith playing a game, you're pretty much screwed from that point on. And then at that point, Geno Smith went down. So I think even the Jets now are considering bringing another quarterback in, because they're going to have Bryce Petty, and I don't think they want Bryce Petty to start this year. So good luck with that, New York. All right, before my picks, I'd like to tell everybody that the Arizona Cardinals, Baltimore Ravens, Detroit Lions, Kansas City Chiefs, Seattle Seahawks, and Houston Texans are all on bye this week. This is the largest bye week of the year, with 6 teams on bye, so 3 games are not going to be played. So now there's even more pressure on me to try to get better, because it's only a 13-game week this week. But yeah, those are the 6 teams on bye. And time for my picks. This Thursday, when the 2-6 Cleveland Browns go to the 7-0 Cincinnati Bengals, I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals. And then on Sunday, when the 4-3 Oakland Raiders go to the 4-4 Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm going to take the Pittsburgh Steelers. When the 6-1 Green Bay Packers go to the 7-0 or 6-1 Carolina Panthers, I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers. When the 3-4 Washington Redskins go to the 7-0 New England Patriots, I'm going to take the New England Patriots. When the 1-5 Tennessee Titans go to the 4-4 New Orleans Saints, I'm going to take the New Orleans Saints. When the 2-5 Jacksonville Jaguars go to the 4-3 New York Jets, I'm going to take the New York Jets. When the 4-3 St. Louis Rams go to the 5-2 Minnesota Vikings, I'm going to take the Minnesota Vikings. When the 3-4 Miami Dolphins go to the 3-4 Buffalo Bills, I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills. When the 6-2 Atlanta Falcons go to the 2-6 San Francisco 49ers, I'm going to take the Atlanta Falcons. When the 4-4 New York Giants go to the 3-4 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I'm going to take the New York Giants. When the 7-0 Denver Broncos go to the 4-5 they're 3-4 right now. I'm sorry. When they go to the 4-4 or 3-5 Indianapolis Colts, I'm going to take the Denver Broncos. And then when the 3-4 Philadelphia Eagles go to the 2-5 Dallas Cowboys, I'm going to take the Philadelphia Eagles. And then on Monday night, when the 2-6 Chicago Bears go to when the 2-5 Chicago Bears go to the 2-6 San Diego Chargers, I'm going to take the San Diego Chargers. All right, time for my thoughts on each game. Cleveland at Cincinnati. Man, this game is very big for the Bengals. They're coming off a huge victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers, 16-10. And to me, that was, I think, the final nail in the coffin for a lot of people, maybe, for the Bengal doubters. I've believed in this team since they beat Seattle. And the fact that they have continued to win games. And again, this game wasn't pretty. Andy Dalton had two terrible interceptions, including one in the red zone, which was just mind-blowingly, dumb. And it definitely looked like that the Steelers were going to get the win, and the Dalton critics were going to, including myself, maybe, and say, well, that's the real Andy Dalton. He finally showed up. But Ben was able to actually bail out Andy with his 3 interceptions, including one with about a minute left, and then he overthrew Brown in the end zone. So, but the fact that they won that game and now they have a 3.5 game lead over the AFC North, I think they have won the division. I don't think any team in the AFC North can reach the Bengals. Because you got the Ravens and Browns at 2-6, and the Steelers are 4-4, and that's the best team that has the best chance. And they're 3.5 back. So even if they beat Cincinnati in Cincinnati, Pittsburgh does, they're still 2.5 back. And I don't think with Pittsburgh's games remaining, they still have to play Seattle. They still have to play us. They have a lot of other competitive games, and I'm not feeling it. But congratulations, Cincinnati. And then you have Cleveland, who just is playing Cleveland-type ball this year. They actually were putting up a really good fight against the Browns, and they actually had against the Cardinals, and they actually had a 10-point lead on them. But then in typical Browns fashion, they just collapsed, and Palmer ended up throwing for 379 yards, 4 touchdowns and an interception, and they ended up losing 34-20. I'm going to take Cincinnati just because last year in Cincinnati, they shut out this team 30-0. With Johnny Manziel at quarterback, and with Josh McCown having another game where he exited the game early with a few minutes left with a sore shoulder, I really do believe that Johnny Manziel will get his third start against the Cincinnati Bengals, which he's done awful. This one game he got shut out, but it was his first start, and it's only his third start, so you really don't have to put that much in it. But you're playing a Cincinnati offense that's third in the league in points per game and 6th in yards per game. And also, I think that Dalton wants some revenge as well, because it was this game almost at about this time, maybe a little bit later, where the Bengals went into Cleveland on Thursday night and they got whipped 24-3. And Andy Dalton ended up having a passer rating of 2. Let me repeat that. 2.0. That was his passer rating. I think he ended up with 90 yards, no touchdowns, and 3 interceptions against this Browns team. So, I don't think that he has too much talent around him and too much confidence that he's not going to lay another egg like that on Thursday Night Football. And also, the Browns have had so many injuries. Joe Hayden went down with another concussion. I don't expect him to play. And if he doesn't play, that just even heightens the ability of A.J. Green, Jones, Sanu, Eifert, and all those guys to run through that Cleveland defense. I'm expecting this game to be a pretty significant win. I'll give the Browns enough respect to say it's not going to be a blowout, but I will say it's going to be about 10 to 20 points that they, or 10 to 20 points that they win this game by. So again, it should be, a big game. Hopefully it's not a trap for the Bengals, that they're coming off another huge high, that they're playing another division rival, because when you play division rivals, records go out the window. But, yeah, I'm going to take, that's what I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals to beat the Cleveland Browns. Pittsburgh over Oakland. This is really tough, because over the last 4 weeks, both teams have been up and down. If you were to tell me in weeks 5 and 6 if these two teams played, I would have taken Pittsburgh. And if it had been the last 2 weeks, it's advantage Oakland, because both teams, Pittsburgh has lost their last 2 games, while Oakland has won their last 2 games. And then the 2 weeks before that, Oakland lost their 2 games, and Pittsburgh won their 2 games. So they're both 2-2 over the last 4 games. And also, my condolences go out to Le'Veon Bell. What a terrible knee injury. He broke his MCL, and he will be put on season-ending IR today. And actually, they are bringing in Isaiah Peed to the building today to try him out, sign him to a contract. I think that this game is going to be very competitive. Derek Carr has been playing incredibly well. I think he's thrown about a little bit over he's thrown 300 yards over the last 2 games. He has 7 touchdowns compared to no interceptions. Charles Woodson is leading the league in interceptions at age 39 with 5. And he actually, he actually tied for 5th now all time in interceptions with 65. So congratulations. He's only 3 away from getting to 4th and tying the great Night Train Lane for 4th all-time in interceptions. So this Oakland team has exceeded several expectations of a lot of people. And I will say this, if they win this game, they're going to get a wild card spot. Because the other 2 teams that have a chance, or have the best chance to get the other wild card spot, Oakland would have a win over both of them. So they would easily get in with a tie record either way. And that's the Jets and the Steelers. But I'm going to take Pittsburgh just because I just like home field. This is just an awkward thing. Oakland's been on fire. Big Ben just came back, and I think they said during the sportscast that he's either 500 or 2-5 after he comes back from an injury. So he really doesn't do that well coming off an injury in the first place. But if he gets another week, this is an Oakland team that has to go to Pittsburgh. I think D'Angelo Williams can counteract Latavius Murray enough that won't be that much of a difference. You still have Bryant and Brown, who I think are better than Cooper and Crabtree. Mark Cooper had another solid game. And congrats for Andre Holmes, too. He had a monster game against the Jets yesterday. But I'm going to take Pittsburgh just because of home field. This is just, that's just what it is. I think that going into Pittsburgh, it's a hard place. The Steelers are up against the wall. Their defense has played extremely well. I think Derek Carr can make some mistakes. I'm not saying he will, because I thought he was going to make mistakes against the Jets, and he did not, which incredibly impressed me. So he might have another flawless game, and the Raiders might be able to steal a win in Pittsburgh. But I think that Pittsburgh, with their defense, with how they can get after the quarterback, they got Dalton 3 times. They caused a couple fumbles. I think they can get Derek Carr, off his spot, and they can make him have one bad throw or one bad mistake that Pittsburgh offense can capitalize on and drive for the win. Even though I think the last time Oakland went to Pittsburgh, and I know this series actually favors Oakland. I think Oakland's won the last 2 or 3 games against these Steelers, which is kind of amazing. But I think Pittsburgh, they just have too much talent and their backs are against the wall. And I know this Mike Tomlin team is going to fire them up and get a much-needed win to maybe solidify their spot in one of their 2 wildcard spots. So that's why I'm going to take Pittsburgh to beat Oakland. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if Oakland beats Pittsburgh. I'll say that right now. Green Bay over Carolina. Man, this was that game last night. The Denver Broncos took the will out of the Green Bay Packers. The Denver Broncos held the Green Bay Packers to 140 yards of total offense. That's the second lowest, I think, in the last few years. Aaron Rodgers, I think if I'm right here, would have thrown the second least amount of yards, or maybe even the least amount of yards passing over the weekend behind Matthew Stafford. That's how good that Denver defense was last night. And a huge kudos to Peyton Manning as well, throwing for 320 yards. When you compare it to 77, he clearly outplayed Rodgers in every way. And I had to give him a lot of credit. And also, they got their running game together. Hillman and Anderson. C.J. Anderson finally showed up. That we saw him. We saw him last year. He just carved him up, for a big touchdown. I think he had about almost 100. He had about 100 yards on the ground. And when you have a game like that, and the Kubiak offense is going to work. But definitely, that's a sour pill to taste in the Packers' mouth. I think all that sourness is going to be the reason why they beat this Panther team. I think Carolina, if they beat Indy, they're going to be 7-0. So definitely, Carolina will have nothing to lose. Okay, let me rephrase that. They'll be tied with them. So Green Bay would, if they win, they'll have the number 1 seed by tiebreaker, not by record. And it's just something where I don't expect this Packers offense to struggle that bad against this Panthers defense. Wait. Actually, the Panthers defense is really good. They're one of the best in the league. I'll put it this way. I think the Packers offense can do more against the Panthers defense than what Cam's offense can do against the Packers defense. I'll put it that way. That sounds better. Because the Green Bay Packers are 2-0 against Cam Newton all time. They've won each game by 14 points. Last year they beat them 38-17. This Panthers team is a lot different, or this year they have a lot more mojo and a lot more confidence. Carolina has the longest active winning streak in the league at about 10 games. Yeah, they've won their last 10 games and 11 of their last 12 if you count the postseason. So Carolina's a hot team, and I think that Carolina they know how to get teams to play their style of football, which is basically what Denver did: play great defense and pound the rock, to the nth degree. But when I look at these two teams, I'm just expecting Aaron Rodgers to outplay Cam Newton. I think both defenses are going to do their work. It's going to be another low-scoring game. Jonathan Stewart and Eddie Lacy. Jonathan Stewart's been having a great silent year. Not many people are talking about how good he's been. But I think Green Bay just has enough firepower, and I trust Rodgers enough over Cam that they can get this win. Because if the Packers lose this game against the Panthers, that's totally going to change the perception, I think, of both teams. Because now you can say that Carolina has legitimized themselves into being possibly the best team and maybe even a Super Bowl team. But I just think, again, Rodgers will bounce back. He can't have 2 eggs in a row against these 2 defenses. He has to play better. And I just don't think Cam, who's coming off a 1 touchdown, 3 interception game against the Eagles, I just don't think he can play that well enough, even with Rodgers at like 80%, that the Panthers won't be able to win this game. Should be a great game, low scoring, but this is one of the top games of the week. Actually, it is the game of the week to me. But again, I'm going to take Green Bay. Rodgers is going to have 2 bad games in a row, and I don't think Cam, with how he's played, can perform like Peyton did last night with the weapons he had. So, that's when I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers to beat the Carolina Panthers. New England over Washington. The New England Patriots are on a 2007 type tear. This is the best team in football, hands down. They have beaten their opponents by an average of, I think, 19 points per game, and they have the number 1 offense in the entire NFL in points per game at 36.5 points. Tom Brady is playing the best football I've seen his entire career at age 38. I think he has 15 touchdowns to 1 interception, and it's just masterful to see what this man's done. And to me, this game is just a total mismatch. Kirk Cousins is not going to be able to complete 33 passes on this New England defense. He's not going to be able, I don't think, to turn the ball over. I think, with how weak Alfred Morris and Matt Jones have looked over the last several weeks, I don't think that they're going to be able to get any of the run going. The Patriots have won the last 2 games against the Redskins. And also, Tom Brady in their last 12 games against the AFC East, the NFC East, Tom Brady and the Patriots are 10-2 against the NFC East in their last 12 games. So, when you look at this game, it's just basically New England just has too much firepower and in every way that I don't even think Kirk Cousins and them could compete. If the Redskins running, defense, which has been very good this year, if they can shut down Blunt and Lewis enough, but even if they shut down Dion Lewis running, they'll have to deal with Dion Lewis as a pass catcher. And he is a great pass catcher. And by the way, what a great story for him as well, to see how great Dion Lewis has become in this Patriots offense, where nobody really expected him to do anything. And, so again, I'm going to take the Patriots. This is the easiest game of the week. And for my 3 locks for the week, while I'm talking about it, I'm going to take New England as a lock over Washington. I'm going to take Atlanta as a lock over San Francisco. And I'm going to take Denver over Indy as my other lock for my 3 locks of the week. So, again, New England over Washington, fairly easy. New England's the best team in football. Washington is a very inconsistent team that can have really good games if Cousins doesn't turn the ball over, and they can look like absolute garbage when he does. And against this New England defense, I expect them to turn the ball over, which means that the Redskins will play like garbage against this Patriot team. So that's why I'm going to take the New England Patriots to beat the Redskins. New Orleans over Tennessee. I want to congratulate Drew Brees for tying the NFL record for 7 touchdowns in a game. What a shootout they had against the New York Giants. 101 points scored, the 4th most in NFL history. And it was almost like I was watching a Baylor game. I was watching like Baylor and TCU, where basically the ball was just going all the way up and down the field, and they were both Eli and Drew were both playing 7-on-7. It was an unbelievable aerial display. Thank God I had Odell Beckham on my fantasy team. I think he was the highest scoring fantasy receiver of the day with 32 points. But I think New Orleans has turned the corner. They have won 4 of their last 5 games. They have won 3 straight. They are the number 2 passing attack in the game, and they score the 6th most points. And they're 6th in points per game. Drew Brees is 5th in passing yardage, and also this is its Titans team that just has been absolutely anemic over the year. And they played the Houston Texans with Brian Hoyer, and they just looked absolutely weak. I think J.J. Watt sacked Mettenberger 3 or 4 times. Mettenberger threw another 2 interceptions. He's had an interception in every single game he's played in his career, by the way. That's kind of an amazing stat for about 8 or 9 games. That basically the chances of Mettenberger throwing an interception is 100%. And I'm just looking at this Saints team. They've won 3 straight at home now. And even if they get Mariota back, I don't think that he's going to be able to do enough against the Saints team. That place is going to be really loud. You're playing a Rob Ryan defense that loves to blitz. We know what Dan Campbell did in Tennessee when Miami came there a couple weeks ago. Mariota just looked absolutely frazzled and just confused. And to me, this is just a cakewalk game for the Saints, just because the Titans' offense has nothing, and Drew Brees will literally, again, carve up the Titans. I don't think he'll throw for 7 touchdowns, because he won't need to, but he'll definitely carve up the secondary. It's weak, it's pathetic, and I believe Ken Whisenhunt's going to lose his job, because this is where my rule of the second year going 8-8, if you don't, you get fired, I think applies, because this team, he's only won 4 games over the last 2 years. When he got this team, they had won 7 games. So let me repeat that. He's won less games than what the Titans had before he left them. So maybe that shows how bad Ken Whisenhunt and all his staff has turned this Titans team. And also just frustrating because I look at Kendall Wright and I see a guy, that's really good, but he's being wasted. Dorial Green-Beckham's done nothing. Bishop Sankey's an absolute bust. He had a horrible fumble on a kickoff return. And it's just a bad time to be in Tennessee right now. And I think, until you get an established coach that can work with young talent, I don't think the Titans are going to go anywhere. Again, easy game. I'm going to take the Saints over the Titans just because they have too much firepower and momentum that this Titans team can't match. Even if this was in Tennessee, I'd take the Saints over the Titans. Just too much talent. Oh, congrats to Ben Watson, though, by the way. Leading to all tight ends this week with 142 yards. Incredibly impressive, and I'm happy for him. He's a great ambassador for the game, a great person, and it's good to see him thriving in New Orleans. So that's why I'm going to take the Saints over the Titans. The Jets over the Jaguars, this is really tough. Because, as I said earlier, the Jets' 2 starting quarterbacks are down. Ryan Fitzpatrick went out of the game in the first half with an injury. He broke his non-throwing hand, his thumb, and they brought Geno Smith in the game. And I was frustrated at that point because I'm like, okay, great, Geno's in the game. And I knew at that point they were going to lose. And Geno proceeded, even though, again, he had a nice drive, and even though there were some penalties involved, and he got a touchdown to Brandon Marshall, who, by the way, is dealing with an ankle and a toe injury in both legs. So, well, let me rephrase that. He's dealing with one foot he has an ankle injury, one foot he has a toe injury. So he's dealing with injuries in both feet, which is bad. And then Geno went down with an abdomen injury and a shoulder injury. So if Ryan can't get his thumb working, and I think Geno will be out, the Jets are going to have to find another quarterback because I don't think they're going to let Bryce Petty start that game. I think they should because, again, this is a great game for Petty to try out. It's against the Jaguars. I think that, Jacksonville, they're coming off their bye. They got a huge confidence boost by beating the Bills the way they did. Even though, again, that might have been the nail in Gus Bradley's coffin if he did not win that game. But I'm just going to take the Jets just because Blake Bortles is not Derek Carr. Okay, if you look at that 2014 quarterback draft class, Bridgewater and Carr have matured immensely. And they look like 2 legitimate starting quarterbacks for teams. And they're making the strides to become franchise quarterbacks for those 2 teams. Blake Bortles, he's been kind of where he was at. He's shown some great flashes this year, but he's also shown some duds with how he's played. So I don't really see that much movement from him that I would really, put myself at the wheel. And also, I just think the Jets defense can win this game for him. I expect this game to be very low scoring. Both these defenses are very good. I think Cromartie and Revis, they can shut down, with Bortles throwing on the ball, I think they can shut down the double A battery, or the Allen wrenches I like to call them, Allen Robinson and Allen Hearns, Yeldon and their awkward running situation has been able to get nothing, and I think that the Jets defense can stop the run pretty decisively. And also, the Jets are 2-0 against the AFC South this year. Anyway, they already beat the Colts. Or no, I'm sorry, they're 1-0. They've already beaten the Colts pretty bad, and I think that the Jets have enough defense that they can shut down the Jacksonville offense. It should be a low-scoring game. It's going to be an awkward game. If Jacksonville can somehow win this game, I think the Jets should hit the panic button, because that's not a game that they should lose, and we'll maybe have to give Jacksonville more credit for actually maybe being able to get to a 500 record and saving Bradley's job. But until I see Bortles have a solid game all around, or a non-mistake game, I'm going to take the Jets to win this one, just because there's a big difference between Derek Carr and Blake Bortles and Amari Cooper and his weapon, Amari Cooper and Crabtree, compared to Robinson and Hearns. And I think the Jets can win this game with their defense. So that's why I'm going to take the Jets to beat the Jaguars. The Vikings over the Rams. The Minnesota Vikings right now today are one game behind the Green Bay Packers for the NFC North. I'd like to ask anybody out there, did anybody know that? Has anybody noticed the Vikings have won 3 straight games? Has anybody noticed they've won 4 of the last 5 games? Has anyone noticed this? I don't think so. Nobody has talked about how good the Minnesota Vikings have been this year. They have one of the best defenses in the league. Adrian Peterson and Bridgewater are doing decent enough jobs. And again, Adrian had another 90. He had about 110 yards. A typical day for AP. Nothing to sneeze at. Teddy, he didn't have one of his best days, but that's kind of how he's been. But when they needed him most, he was able to drive them down the field to get the game-winning touchdown and field goal within a span of 5 minutes, which was incredibly impressive on his part. And Stephon Diggs, fear the turtle. Man, it's awesome being a Marylander and looking at a Maryland kid shine. This kid has been incredible for the Vikings. He's become the number 1 receiving threat on this team. They actually said he's on pace. I'm not saying he'll do it, but he's on pace to break Randy Moss's rookie record. Let me rephrase it. He is supposed to have more receptions and yards than Randy Moss did in his rookie season in 1998. For any Viking wide receiver, if you can outdo Randy Moss, or you're on pace to outdo Randy Moss, you must be good if you can do that, or you must be special if you can do that. Do I think he will do it? No, because I think there's some defenses that are coming up that they're gonna shut him down. But with this pace he's going on, it's an incredible story. See how this 5th round pick has been balling incredibly well. And to me, when I look at this game, Minnesota, they're undefeated at home, and I think the biggest thing that everybody should be looking forward to is this running back matchup. This is an incredible running back matchup. You have the 3rd leading rusher in the league in Adrian Peterson taking on the 5th leading rusher in the league in Todd Gurley. And congratulations to Todd Gurley, first running back in NFL history to have his first 4 games, he goes for over 125 yards. He has carried this team on his back with his feet and his weight, and I'm scared for the rest of the league to see how good this guy can be in the future. Because if he's doing this now, just wait till he has a full offseason. Remember, he was just rehabbing his ACL. Wait until he can gain some weight, lose some weight, get his footwork better. This guy, I think, in a couple years, or maybe even next year, or I'll say 2 years. In 2 years, you could put him as the best running back in pro football. That's how much confidence I've seen in these last 4 games. The Rams absolutely found a gem in Todd Gurley, and it's incredibly impressive to watch him run. And, so that's an exciting thing. But also, I'm going to take the Vikings just because Adrian Peterson, in the 3 games he's played the Minnesota Vikings, has 350 yards. So he averages about 120 yards per game on the ground. And I think that'll be enough that they can manage the clock. And also, I just like that. I just think Teddy Bridgewater can outplay Nick Foles in this game. Nick Foles has been very pedestrian, I think, over the last several weeks. Where, the Rams have won 2 games, but nobody's really talked about Nick Foles. Because he doesn't deserve any praise for what he's done. Like last week, again in Cleveland, he threw for 160 yards and no touchdowns. And in this week, he threw for about, 160, 190 yards and a touchdown. So he's really done the game manager minimum to win games. For this team. And I think with the Minnesota defense of how good they can be, with the weapons that they have, and just what I've seen out of Teddy, I've seen Teddy Bridgewater have better games than what I've seen Nick Foles have. Ever since that game against the Seahawks, Week 1, Nick Foles has played either poorly or to pedestrian at best, very average. I've seen Bridgewater put up a couple solid games where I could say, you know what, he did his part and he contributed a good amount for their victory. Again, it should be a great game. I'm really looking forward to the running back matchup. Defenses are about even. I would give the Vikings a little bit of edge in secondary, but I'm going to take the Vikings. I think AP is going to be able to do his job and just show Gurley right now, okay, that even though you are on the scene and you have definitely made a huge impact, I'm still Adrian Peterson and I'm still the best running back in the league, and I am not going to let you outshine me on my home turf this weekend. Should be a great running back battle and a solid game all around, but I'm going to take the Vikings. Too much AP, and I think Bridgewater outdoes Foles. Okay, Buffalo over Miami. And let me first say, I'll have to maybe renege on my last statement because I think I said in my last video, and any of my commenters, any of the prognosticators that watch the video, please let me know. I think I said I was going to take the Dolphins to beat Buffalo next week. Last week. Well, I watched the game, Miami. And the one thing that I didn't want to happen did happen. And that was you laid a giant egg. And it really disappointed me because I'm like, well, this Miami team, they just played weak competition. Once you put them up against a good opponent, they crap the bed. That whole game, I think they said they didn't have a play in the 50-yard line through the first half. You let Dion Lewis outgain you. The running back on the Patriots had more receiving yards than any of the Dolphins. The Dominican Sue was a no-show. That whole defense was a no-show. And you were playing the weakest offensive line in football. And I understand it's Brady, but, come on. You had 10 sacks the last 2 games. How many sacks you get on Brady this game? I think 1. So, I was just incredibly disappointed. And I think the kicker for me, or the one that clinched this, won the Buffalo for me, was the unfortunate Achilles tear by Cameron Wake. And he is out for the rest of the year. I think that with him being out, and he was the 4th, he was number 4 in sacks in the league with 7. And knowing that he had over half of your sacks, I think this Miami defense is going to go back to what it was under Philbin. It's not because of the mentality, no, because I think Dan Campbell will have them motivated. But I think it's because that they just want to be Tom. You double team Sue again, now with Wake out, you got no pass rush. Nobody else on that Dolphins defensive line has been able to get it home, in those other 2 games, besides Sue and Wake. And then also I looked at some history. The Miami Dolphins have lost 3 straight in Buffalo, which is kind of ironic because the Buffalo Bills this year have lost 3 straight at home overall. So one of those 3-game streaks is going to end. And I think with Buffalo, on a bye, they're going to get Tyrod Taylor back. Hopefully they get Watkins back. Harbin's a possibility, but I'm not expecting him to show up. And I just think Buffalo, they just have enough defensive power and enough offensive power with this, how reeling this Dolphins team is. And one more thing about Dan Campbell. I didn't like what he said about how he wanted this team to not forget this feeling. That, that's a positive message, but at the same time, that's kind of a negative thing. Because if you keep losing games like the way they did, and you lose any more games like that, then what are you supposed to tell them? Oh yeah, don't forget this feeling. Embrace. You know what? Because again, that's a bad thing. Because you know what they're going to do? They're going to remember how bad this is. They're going to realize how bad this Miami Dolphins team is right now. And then that could lead to dissension, that could lead to frustration, that could lead to a bunch of bad things. In some ways, what Dan Campbell should have said was that they should not forget this feeling right now, but we have to move on, and we have to focus on Buffalo. We can't, dwell in the past. We got to focus on our next game and try to move forward and take this whipping and learn from it and just fix our mistakes and go on to Buffalo and take out that aggression on the Bills. That's how I would have said it, and that would have made a lot more sense. And I would have felt a lot better about that. But again, sorry Dolphins fans, maybe you could call me a hypocrite, but I watched the game. I was disappointed. And I just have to say, I think Buffalo, they've had your number in Buffalo. Miami fans, they've had your number in Buffalo over the last several years. And I just don't think with Cameron Wade gone, with the 7 sacks that you're losing, I don't expect this pass rush to get to Tyrod Taylor at all. And I expect the Bills to win a tough-fought division game in Buffalo. And Buffalo gets off their 3-game losing streak at home. So that's what I'm going to take the Bills to beat the Dolphins. The Falcons over the Niners. The Atlanta Falcons. They leave such an awkward taste in my mouth. And I have to tell you, over the last 3 games, if I'm an Atlanta Falcons fan, I am extremely concerned. You've lost 2 of your last 3 games. You've committed, I think, 3, 6, about 7 or 8 turnovers in the last 3 games. And your only win in your last 3 games was against a 1-win Titan team that you won by a field goal. To just watch what Tampa did. Okay, this was the Tampa team that I went on a huge rant about last week. Okay? You lose to that team? Really? Do I have to remind you what you did in Atlanta last year? You blew them out 56-14. Okay, I know McCown was there. But that Tampa team really did not add anybody that great. Or they added Winston. But that's it. But the fact that you let them beat you, that is demoralizing to me. And I really am starting to believe that the Falcons were pretty overrated. Because you think about it, they played the NFC East. If Parkey doesn't miss a field goal, the Giants hold on to a 10-point lead, the Cowboys don't blow an 11-point lead, and the Redskins somehow drive down the field and don't get picked 6 at the end, the Falcons could be winless. Or the Falcons could be very well right now 0-8 if all these things don't happen. But here is the saddest thing about all of that. I'm going to take Atlanta because they're playing the worst offensive team in the league. The Niners have not scored a touchdown in the last 2 games. Sorry, guys. They've looked absolutely anemic. It's putrid to watch Kaepernick now. He's missing throws. He's scrambling awkwardly. And the defense can't do anything. So I'm just going to take Atlanta just because even if Atlanta screws up, which I'm expecting them to do, Even if Atlanta fumbles in the red zone, or Matt Ryan throws a pick, or Julio Jones gets stripped, which is a very rarity, and congrats to Quan Alexander for doing that, San Francisco won't do anything with it. This is going to be just an awkward game where literally Atlanta will muster up enough offense to win, and even if Atlanta turns the ball over 2 or 3 times, I don't think San Francisco can do anything with those turnovers. If you want my honest opinion, I don't think they can do anything with those turnovers. And Atlanta's going to win, a 13-12 type game. That Seattle had this week. That's the kind of score I'm expecting. But again, I'm going to take Atlanta just because San Francisco has no offense, and Atlanta can score enough on offense to get the win. So that's why I'm going to take the Falcons to beat the Niners. The Giants over the Bucks. That Giant defense was horrid. They gave up 52 points. You let Breeze score 7 touchdowns. Again, kudos to Eli for, throwing a new career high with 6. But I just, to me, when you look at the Buccaneers, Winston's put up 3 solid games in a row. He's really showing that maybe, maybe it's not fair because Mariota went down, but Winston shows he's more durable, and he's showing that he's learning more of this Bucs offense as the weeks have gone on, and he's put up 3 solid games. But I don't expect the Bucs, or I don't expect the Giants, if they can get any turnovers on the Buccaneers. And also, they are the number 1 team in turnover differential. I don't expect them to be able to outshoot the Giants. I think this game is going to be a high offensive game. These are 2 secondaries that are not great. They're in the bottom of the league. Tampa gives up an extreme amount of points a game. I think they're like 25th in points per game. So the Giants can definitely do what they did in New Orleans. And yeah, I guess that's the reason why I'm going to take the Giants. I think Tampa's defense got extremely lucky with how many turnovers they committed. I don't expect the Giants to commit that many turnovers. Again, the most awkward one that they got or they had was just how a fumble went into Willie Snead's hands, and Brad Wing had a face mask penalty at the end there to give the Saints the win. So, again, when you look at this game, Giants, Bucks, you got 2 evenly kind of matched offenses over the last several weeks. But in this kind of game, I'm going to take the Giants offense over the Bucks in a shootout. So that's why I'm going to take the Giants to beat the Buccaneers. Denver over Indy? Fairly simple. Denver has the number 1 defense in the entire league. They are 7-0, and they are coming off a huge win over the Green Bay Packers. And I just think this Indianapolis team, when I look at them, they're going to be no match for this Denver defense. Hilton will get shut down by Talib. Johnson will get shut down by Harris. Andrew Luck might throw another 2 or 3 interceptions. He's, I think, third in the league with 9. Yeah, he's third in the league with 9 interceptions. And also, Peyton Manning will be motivated. He's going back to Indianapolis for the 2nd time in his Denver tenure. And also, on that, he is 1-2 all time since he has joined the Broncos against the Colts. That includes postseason. And also, he has the chance to pass Brett Favre's all-time wins record at 176. And in front of his former home crowd, I think that'll be kind of a very significant moment that a lot of Bronco fans will be happy about. I know it'll be tough for them to, lose, especially losing their 4th straight game. But again, remember, they are in the AFC South. So, if they're 3-5 and 3-6, who cares? They're still only about half a game back, and they're still going to win their division. But after what I saw Denver do against Green Bay, and just how good Green Bay's been all year, that just pretty much locked this game for me over Indy. Just because I don't see the same Indianapolis Colts that I saw last year. It's very disappointing. I think Chuck Pagano is on his way out the door in Indy, even though I don't agree with it. But just watching how lackluster this team's been. Sorry guys, my nose is itching a little bit there. I just expect these Broncos to put on another defensive clinic. And also, they're going to be able to run the ball very well to give the Broncos this victory. Also, the Indianapolis Colts have the worst pass defense in the league. So if Peyton Manning can put up 320 yards against the second best defense in the league, or second best of points allowed, he can sure put up a lot of yards on the worst passing defense in the league. So that's how I'm going to take the Denver Broncos to beat the Indianapolis Colts. Philadelphia over Dallas. It's just because when I look at these two offenses, Philadelphia has much more firepower in the running game with Murray and Matthews, and he had a little bit of Sproles in there. They're coming off their bye. They have won 2 straight in Dallas. The Eagles have. The last one being 33-10 on Thanksgiving. And also, this is a Dallas team that is 5-7 at home over the last 12 home games. And ever since the second half of the Atlanta Falcons game, they have been outscored 65-18. Let me repeat that again. They have been outscored, ladies and gentlemen, 65-18 in the last 10 quarters of football. The last 10 quarters at home, the Dallas Cowboys have been outscored 65-18. Do I think that, if this game could be very competitive? Yes, it can be. NFC East battles are always this way. But when I look at how, anemic Matt Cassel's been, even though he didn't throw an interception, which was actually quite shocking because I thought he would have thrown, 1 or 2 interceptions against this Legion of Boom. I just think that he doesn't have enough consistency. And Sam Bradford's actually looked better than Matt Castle has. Sam Bradford, has shown that he can throw 300 yards in a game. And he's shown that he can throw a couple touchdowns. I haven't seen Castle do that, in the last 2 games. And, it's disappointing because you might actually consider, for next week, if he craps the bet again, to start Kellen Moore. Because they got to at least wait 1 more week before Romo can come back. And you might actually start Kellen Moore against the Bucs if Castle plays another horrible game. But again, I'm going to take Philadelphia. Philadelphia's got one of the best defenses in the league. They have a good enough running game. The Eagles defense could shut down McFadden and Michael. And I just expect Bradford to just very awkwardly outplay Matt Castle at the end there. So that's why I'm going to take the Philadelphia Eagles to beat the Dallas Cowboys. And then finally, the Monday night game, San Diego over Chicago. Home field. That's what the difference was. Because I'm looking at 2 teams here. Phillip Rivers has all the offensive talent in the world, and he's been competitive in a lot of games. Jay Cutler has very little offensive talent, or he's had a lot of injured offensive talent, and very little offensive talent, and he's been competitive in a lot of games. They both have 2 wins. They both had a bunch of heartbreaking losses on their resumes this year. So when I look at that, it just basically goes down to me that San Diego's at home and Chicago's on the road. That's what it comes down to because you got 2 running backs. The Chargers last week had so many injuries against us. It was unbelievable. They lost their guards. Keenan Allen went down. Stevie Johnson went down. I can go on and on and on. Eric Weddle was still out. They lost to King Dunlap. And Chicago, they didn't have Forte or Royal to end the game, and they still could have won the game. Well, when you look at this game, it pretty much is an even battle. So I'm going to give the edge to the home team just because they have more offensive talent to work with. And also, I just don't know how the Bears are going to do without Royal or Forte. And also, one more quick thing. Huge shout out to Steve Smith Sr. It was a devastation to see him go down with his torn Achilles. He said this was going to be his final season. I hope it's not because I don't want him to go out like that with an injury. I hope he comes back for one more year with us to just try to right the wrong and give himself a proper send-off. But if he does choose to retire, and he does plan to stick with that, I want to commend Steve Smith for a Hall of Fame career. You are one of the best stories. You are one of the best motivators. You are one of the best trash talkers and one of the best wide receivers to ever play this game. And I salute you, Mr. 89. And I wish you the best in retirement once this year's over. I wish you the best. So those are my thoughts for the rest for this week. Sorry guys, my nose got stuffed up. Needed a video, and that's why my voice changed. So that's it. So like, comment, rate, subscribe. Make sure to please check out the NFL YouTube prognosticators page. Shout outs to guys. Andrew Warren, thank you for shouting me out last week in your video. I did not get shout out like you said. So, and you'll understand a little reference there if you watched it. Shout out to Andrew Warren, Geo Knows, Billy B, King Poetic, Half Moon's Picks, Master Chief Hill for JustMyPicks.com. He was about perfect he was going on a perfect streak for about 2 weeks, and he ended up missing it due to the Broncos winning last night. Sorry, buddy. But so shout out to Master Chief. Shout out to Mason Cole, Owen Will, Logan Brett. I had a great time with him. I actually had a Google hangout with him last week. And we had a nice conversation. Sorry about your Mets stuff, buddy. Tough break. But shout out to Logan Brett. Shout out to, see here if I'm forgetting anybody. Philadelphia. I know she does her picks occasionally on the page. And to all the other great prognosticators on our page. And that's it. So until next week, good luck to all teams, players, coaches, fantasy players, and fellow prognosticators. And until next week, this is Matt the NFL Fanatic signing off. Till then, so long.